it for Freddy Macdonald. Let's start from the beginning. What inspired you to create So Torn, the short film?
Yeah, so it's a crazy story how it all came to be. Essentially, the short film was my application film to film school. And for those of you who have applied to film school, everyone has a different application prompt. But ultimately, I knew that AFI was my number one choice because they're the best, and that was always a dream of mine. And their prompt was to tell a story about a change of heart in 5 minutes. And so we wanted to make a film for AFI, but that would also get me into some school somewhere. And my dad and I started brainstorming a concept for a film that could do that. My dad and I co-write. His name is Fred. I'm Freddy, as you can see in the credits. So we wanted to tell a story about a change of heart, and we were very much inspired by the work of the Coen brothers, and specifically No Country for Old Men. But we wanted to take that premise of coming upon a drug deal gone bad and spin it on its head with a character that we had never seen before, and that's where the seamstress of it all came into play. And once we figured out that piece, we realized we could tell the story of a change of heart and the story of choice with a seamstress and all those juxtapositions that come with that, with the thread and the guns and the blood. And it kind of just wrote itself in terms of the Rube Goldberg nature of it all. So yeah, that's how it came to be.
Where did you get that car with the thread on the back?
The car, my mom found that car in a Swiss garage. And she just asked the owner of the garage, can we use this car for a short? And she said, yeah. So the short was super run and gun. We did it for no money. I think my dad was at one end of the road and my mom was at the other, wearing, vests and letting cars pass every 5 minutes, and everyone was mad at us because we were blocking a very key road in a Swiss town. So yeah.
Yes, amazing, awesome. How did the initial concept then kind of evolve into a feature? So you made the short. What was that kind of like in between of all right, we've got this, and then like all right, I kind of have this idea of the feature. What was that in between like?
Yeah, so once we made the short, we kind of blasted it out to all the schools, along with everyone we knew, and it was just this crazy roller coaster ride, a lot of luck, where it ended up in the hands of a guy named Peter Spears, who produced Call Me By Your Name and Nomadland. And he was like, guys, I love this, can I send this to my friends? And we didn't know what that meant. But then two weeks later, he called us and he was like, guys, Joel Cohen saw the short and wants to meet for coffee, and we ripped off No Country for Old Men in the premise, and so I was terrified. I thought he was gonna yell at us when we met, but he was like, you should turn this into a feature and do it the Blood Simple method, do it independently, ask your dentist, anyone you know for money, and have full creative control. So that's when we were like, oh my God, we have to do this, and we started writing. So we had no clue it was gonna be a feature when we made the short. So we had to reverse engineer things to make it work.
For sure. What was that like, of like being told that, being like, okay, I guess we're doing this?
I was terrified again, because I was like, okay, we gotta figure this out. And we knew that we were gonna remake the short film in the feature in terms of it being the inciting incident. And we knew that we were gonna have to go back on that exact same road and do that whole crazy shoot again.
Have people be mad.
Yeah, people will be mad again, and hopefully have a little bit more money so it's not my parents on both ends of the roads, which we did luckily. But yeah, we immediately started raising money independently through a producer of ours, Barry Navidi, who was helping. But the majority of our funds were raised by these two twins, DZ and Socks, other names, that I met at a film festival in 2016, and they raised the majority of our budget.
Wow.
So yeah.
Amazing. It sounds like people kind of just were really struck by the short and wanted to get on board, which is great.
Well, that's why I love this festival, because I truly believe in the short to feature model, because it was the ultimate tool for us to raise money independently.
Definitely. What were some things that stuck out story-wise where you're like, okay, we can expand in this way when you're thinking about themes and such and emotions that could be deepened through the feature?
The writing process was really long and hard. We started writing it while I was at AFI. And AFI is a great program, but it's incredibly intense. So we were getting notes on 10-page chunks, and which was not the way to do it in the end. But we ended up doing 20 drafts, and I don't want to spoil the feature, but we did 20 drafts of a version that was completely different. And on the 20th draft, we realized, oh my God, we're getting the same notes that we got on the first draft, on this draft. And so we're like, this is a short that can't be expanded. This is maybe we should just throw this out. And we did. But then my dad and I just kept going on these long brainstorming walks. And we actually I started reading letterbox comments on the short film, which helped remind me what the short film is about, which is this moment of choice and a change of heart. And that, once we realized what the core of the short film was about, was when the feature started to write itself, and we knew kind of the direction to go. And again, I don't want to spoil the narrative structure of the feature, but yeah.
For sure, it's really good.
Thank you.
Great. And so, actually, I want to step it back a little bit with the short. How did Searchlight get involved there?
Yeah. So when Peter saw the short, he actually had 3 pieces of news. The first was that Joel Cohen wanted to meet. The second was that Searchlight, he showed it to Searchlight because they were doing Nomadland at the time, and they wanted to buy it. And they did a theatrical push with it alongside Ready or Not. And then the third thing was that Joel's agent started repping me and kind of helped make everything happen with Searchlight and have that all come to fruition. So it was this crazy, lucky whirlwind with Peter.
Yeah. Here's some pieces. Awesome. Okay, so you have the drafts. You're raising the money with the twins.
Yeah.
And then what was kind of pre-production and production like for you with the locations? If you want to talk about the location.
Yeah. We went back to the exact same road again because we just loved it. We scouted some other roads, but it just was perfect for the short. And I always had in the back of my head, like, I knew I wanted to do the short film shot for shot, even if other elements were going to be different, and because I just loved that location. But just up the road, my incredible cinematographer, producer, Sebastian, was like, there's a town up there. And I was like, oh, cool, we should go take a look at it. And it's this population of, I think, 100, it's wedged in the Alps, all elderly population. So they were excited to have young energy in the town. And we kind of were writing the script while scouting. So a lot of the locations you see were things that we saw and were inspired by a while ago and kind of wove into the script in some way. But we were also able to, because we knew the location, do extensive shot lists. We spent months shot listing the film, and you'll see there's way too many shots of thread throughout. So there's a lot of shot listing and scouting.
For sure. Talk about that, like the shot listing with this, because there are so many like details. Do you see all of this like in your head? Are you like working out how all of the threads are moving through and such?
Yeah, so all the Rube Goldberg thread contraptions my dad and I kind of worked out in the script. So we spent just hours in our backyard with cardboard guns and thread spools and just trying to make this stuff. You did it? Yeah, we would do them. And of course the film is very heightened, you'll see. But everything works practically in some sense, and we did them practically on set because we didn't have that much money. But yeah, it was a lot of thread work beforehand, and then once we started shot listing, we knew what the contraptions were. So we would shoot them at my house, and then figure out every possible angle that we loved, and we just spent way too much time with thread in the shot listing process, and I'm sick of thread now. So
how long did that take?
Sebastian and I spent probably 3 months shot listing. Just but every day.
Every day.
Some days we'd have to take a break and then get into it. But we had so many different shot listing drafts. My colorist said it was the most amount of shots he's ever had to deal with in a feature before because there's so many inserts. But I think the film has a bit of a stop motion quality to it. Because my dad and I both kind of started in stop motion, and so we have a stop motion attention to detail in our shots.
Amazing. Were there any difficulties with shooting in another country for both of these that you kind of like faced?
Yeah, my mom is Swiss, so we all have Swiss passports, so that part of it was easy. But we wanted the cast to be international, and the film is very heightened in its location, and we kind of create this fictitious world in some sense. But it was a nightmare to get the cast to Switzerland because Switzerland is not used to having an American co-production. In fact, there's no agreement between Switzerland and the US for co-productions. So it was that side of things, the logistics was a headache. Because otherwise I'd say everyone should shoot in Switzerland because you can point the camera anywhere and it's beautiful. But if you want American actors, it's difficult.
But as you said, it was nice coming in and they were like, ooh, a movie, a Hollywood movie. It's like, are there a lot of things like shot in Switzerland, you said?
The Swiss film industry is very strange. It's tiny, almost non-existent. But a lot of the films there are financed by the government, and so they really want to promote Swiss culture in a way that's very sanitized. So that's why you see Heidi, this Alpine. So we wanted to kind of spin that on its head because we had the creative freedom to do that. But everyone opened their arms up to us. I mean, people let us in their homes, and we're starstruck by our incredible American actors. One of which is here, Kay Callan is here. She's right there. Incredible, you'll see her in the film. I don't want to spoil her role, but she's incredible in every way. And yeah, so people were starstruck that these Americans were here, and yeah.
Very cool. Have you done a Swiss screening yet?
We have. We had, before we premiered at Locarno, we did a screening for the people in the town. And that was something that I was very nervous about because they had seen the short film, but they don't have a theater there. So we were screening in their gymnasium with subtitles. And it was going well, and I was kind of standing in the back, very nervous. And people were laughing, and it was going well. And then somewhere towards the end, this older woman gets up and starts storming towards me. And I was like, again, just so nervous, and she starts screaming at me. She's like, "How do you do this? Why did you do this in our town?" I was just sweating. I was like, "I'm so sorry," because I think it was the violence. I thought it was the violence. And she's like, I really like the script, and I like the shots are really cool. And so she starts listing all these compliments, and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." She likes the film. But then she's like, "All these Americans are now going to come to our town. All these tourists are going to come, and these crazy Americans are going to come here." So overall, it went well, except for that.
Totally. Oh, that's so fun. What would you say was the biggest challenge in expanding So Torn from a short to a feature?
It was really the script. I mean, it was really trying to figure out a device structurally that didn't feel like we were trying to stretch a short out. Because that's, I think, something that you can see a lot is, the short part of the film is really strong, and then everything else feels like filler. So the script was really hard, and then also getting over shooting on that same road again, because we had to do it in one day again too, but with a different actress. And I knew the short so well, and I was very much trying to get every shot to be identical, which no one was going to care if the shots were identical, but I was like, I want it to be the same. Which, you'll see at the end if it's the same or not, but yeah.
For sure.
So that was hard.
You talked a little bit about casting and how you do acting and stuff. How did you approach directing? How did your approach to directing transition from the short to the feature? How did you maybe do things differently, even though you wanted to shot for shot?
Yeah, well, I didn't realize how much harder it is to just emotionally and physically taxing shooting a feature as compared to a short. So that was a big part for me is, giving myself space to, not be so obsessive, even though I am. My dad and I were so in the weeds with the thread. So there's a lot of thread. The thread was traumatizing. But yeah, it was very much trying to adapt to, shooting for 30 days and managing a much larger team who were all Swiss and very supportive. luckily, because they're Swiss, they're all speaking Swiss German when anything went wrong, so I wouldn't know what was going on if that was wrong. So that was good. So shoot in Switzerland for the language differences too. It's
Totally. Because you can't, yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. Awesome. And how did you kind of go about the casting process in general? What do you kind of like look for in pieces like this where there's so much detail?
Yeah. We had great casting directors, Sharon Howard-Field and Nathan Wiley. They did all of our casting. But the feature, like the short, is very visual, so there's not a lot of dialogue from our lead. And when we were looking for the right Barbara, it was a lot of looking for someone who can do scenes that are very physical. So the first round of auditions, we actually had everyone do the short film, just in their bedroom, pretending to come upon a drug deal gone bad, and pretending to see the blood. And I felt terrible asking them to do this because my biggest fear is being in front of people or cameras, and they were doing this in their bedroom on Zoom. And then the second audition was a critical scene in the film. You know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
But I won't spoil it. I was just about to spoil it. But another very visual, physical thing that's pretty rhythmic. You'll see in the film. Yeah.
This is challenging.
I know. I'm like, what can I say?
Totally. Awesome. And then how did you talked a little bit about this, about just like this scale of things kind of changing and attacking the 30-day shoot. And how long was the short film shoot?
The short film was 1 day. Yeah. So it was a non-stop day of, yeah.
Wow. And how, like, what were kind of some strategies, and maybe what are some things that you would do differently, like any advice to those who are maybe making that jump from the short to the feature, because this is such a big one.
Yeah, it's, I think, really just spacing out your days, because we didn't have the luxury to do that, and luckily our crew was it was everyone's first feature in many ways. So that
does not look like that.
Oh, thank you. Everyone was very hungry, which was cool, because we all wanted to make the best thing we possibly could. But I would say just making sure you're getting outside and breathing, because I also cut the feature, and I was so excited to cut it, but it ended up being 10 months in my childhood bedroom, and my bed is right next to my desk, so I would just roll out of bed and start cutting all day, and that's when I really kind of hit a wall, because I was getting just a lot of notes, and my dad would come into my room after I'd been editing all day and said, "Oh, that doesn't work," and I'd be like, "What? You don't like that?" But yeah, so just giving yourself space and time to breathe.
Totally. Yeah. Who were those folks that you're kind of going out to for notes and such during that time? I'm sure it's like a process of you curating that group of folks that you're going out to.
Well, I think my family is really helpful, because if my mom doesn't cry, then I know it's not working. Like, she needs to cry in an emotional scene, and if she doesn't, I'm very upset. But then outside of that, I have my AFI circle, people that know how to give notes. I think are just so much more valuable than not. And then we did a test screening of the rough cut, which was very, very helpful too.
For sure. What kind of questions were you asking people maybe after that test screening? Like, what kind of things were you looking for? Yeah.
A big part of it was the narrative structure and making sure that it felt like it was building to a resolution that made sense. And again, I don't want to spoil kind of the direction it goes in, but that was a key part. And then also, because Barbara's character is so visual in her performance, making sure that her wants and needs are felt on screen visually. That was kind of our two big areas we were looking to tackle and tweak.
Yeah, for sure. And did you do an AFI screening?
No, not yet. I'm waiting I have a lot of AFI friends here, so this will feel a little bit like an AFI screening, but I think we're going to have one coming up in the next couple weeks.
How has the audience response been to the feature? You went to some festivals. I first saw this at South by Southwest. You went to Locarno, and I didn't even know it was a short. And then you said it during the Q&A at South by, and I was like, "You need to do this." And here we are.
Well, it was great because I got to meet you at South by. South by was a great experience, and just kind of pushing it out to an audience that's very, it was unlike anything I'd experienced before. Everyone was very kind and supportive. But also South by is it's like has a commercial undertone to it. And when we had our international premiere at Locarno, which is very art house, and we screened on the Piazza Grande, which is this crazy outdoor venue with 8,000 seats. But the audience is very, Swiss, and they want to see an art film. So I was terrified for that. So it kind of hits both audiences in some ways. And then sometimes it doesn't hit anyone, and that's when I get upset. But yeah.
Awesome. And then how do you kind of hope audiences will experience the feature kind of differently from the short?
Yeah, well, that's why I'm curious about this, because I've never seen them back to back before. The feature, we knew we had to make it a different movie.
Yeah.
Like, it had to be different to make it work tonally. So even the color palette of the film is completely different. It's very vibrant. And we kind of leaned into the heightened nature of it so that you aren't, I think the short is very desaturated and feels very grounded, but we wanted to have the ability to do as many crazy Rube Goldberg contraptions as we can, and to be able to get away with them. So that's why, hopefully when you watch the feature, it feels like more of a heightened experience.
For sure. Is there anything else that is cooking for you that you're like thinking about attacking next? Maybe a different item? Like, it's not bread, but like, I don't know, like bananas or like I was thinking like just focus on like
There is we have our next project now that we're getting close to finished writing, and there's also a crazy kind of physical component to things. It's not as specific as thread, but I think we're always going to have some Rube Goldberg action in our film, so
cool.
That definitely follows through in the next project.
For sure. Is there anywhere too that folks can maybe tell their folks to catch the film next? As it's making its way through things?
We're still in talks with distributors, and it looks like next year we'll have a theatrical release of some kind, so that will be exciting. But yeah, we're at Newport Beach Film Festival, but that's almost over. I think we're going to be kind of continuing to do the festival route until next year.
Well, anything else you want to tell the audience before we queue up the feature? We're already at the end of our queue.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. I haven't seen them back to back, so I hope you enjoy it. That's all I can say.
Enjoy some tours. Everybody.